stop, Paul. There you are. There you go.
Okay, welcome to Axiom Flux News. Today, the first article is talking about fossil fuels, the untouchable reserves. The movement to divest from fossil fuel companies is being prompted by the small but increasingly influential NGO Carbon Tracker, which argues that investment has created a carbon bubble of fossil fuel assets that will be worthless if climate change is taken seriously. The managers of the Rockefeller fortune have heard its message and have already divested from coal. The University of Glasgow's investment fund will avoid fossil fuels altogether. And down here, I might as well read this as well. The NGO350.org is gathering support for a similar campaign in the US and in Norway's vast government pension fund, seeking to pressure companies to take their climate responsibilities more seriously. Surprisingly, the Bank of England has also chipped in. It is conducting an inquiry into the risk of an economic crash if future climate change rules render coal, oil, and gas assets worthless. The findings will be interesting. Even if the inquiry team are alarmed by the potential extent of stranded assets, they can hardly make their case bluntly for fear of creating a stampede. And down here, to heap on the pressure, the talks leading to the prospective climate deal in Paris in December will debate whether fossil fuels can be completely phased out by 2050. So this is kind of interesting, Andy.
Yeah. Maybe that's the reason why they're another reason. The real reason, perhaps, why the price of a barrel of oil is plummeting. Maybe they're going to keep it low, like the so-called interest rates block. It's interesting because I thought alternative energy. I did say a little while ago, I think on Flux News, that I think that this year possibly this year, next year, you'll hear of a new technology, or should we say, to those in the know or done a bit of research, stuff like hydrogen fueled cars and perhaps a bit more wave power type type of alternative energy.
Right. Well, it looks like, we better start. These people better start looking sooner than expected, because it's interesting that they're mentioning climate change here. That's something you've talked about quite a bit, Andy. And if something of a solar flare type thing can happen, and they're saying that all these other coal, oil, and gas will be rendered worthless.
Yeah, well,
and I think probably nuclear energy as well.
Yeah. Yeah, could possibly be. I guess it doesn't matter which side of the fence you are with the global warming or the global cooling, which seems to be gathering more interest from the scientists. One is if it's global cooling coming, that you can have all the oil and gas you like, but logistically, it's going to be a bit of a problem in the northern climates of the globe to be able to get this gas and oil through to the power stations or whatever, coal, whatever. So basically, they're talking about something that's renewable, that's put in place, and that doesn't need hardly very little logistics involved, and it's just permanently on the grid. So I think the alternative energy solutions um, are more viable than the fossil fuels. So I can't. I don't agree too much with the global warming because it's a climate change. It's always changed. It'll always change, no matter what us humans do, I guess. But interesting article, Bob. Yeah, good to spot that.
Well, interesting that you say that, Andy, because my very next article, as you can see here, is a picture of snow on the ground, and this is a place in Saudi Arabia where they have gotten snow over the last 3 years. Right here, down here, it says, snow has covered upland areas of Tabuk province near Saudi Arabia's border with Jordan for the third consecutive year as cold weather swept across the Middle East. So, it looks like global cooling.
It does indeed.
There's another picture of the snow on the ground, and you can see the camels there.
It's almost bizarre, isn't it? Camels on snow, but
yeah, the article was actually to do with something entirely different, but what caught me was the attention was we were talking about the weather, and I immediately thought of global cooling or climate change. I think more properly understood. So yeah.
I think they had to conveniently change from global warming to climate change because of their own data and figures over the past 14 years clearly shows that we're not getting any hotter, and it's looking towards cooling, especially if you tie in the solar cycle and diminishing solar cycles for the next 4 or 5 decades, and it proves in the past that you enter a global cooling period. So I think that's why they changed it to climate change. Then that way they can go, they're sat in the middle and they can ride whichever one's convenient. But I think the CO2 emissions and all that business, where you can put a chart up for that on its own, that will carry on going up, but not necessarily global warming. But yeah, nice lead into that one.
Yeah, my last article here is to do with Australia to cash in on China milk boom. A free trade deal with China that slashes tariffs on dairy exports could turn Australia into a land of milk, and if not honey, and set it up to take advantage of China's addiction to Western powdered milk. So all kinds of crazy stuff here. Ever since milk poisoning scandal in China 2008 killed 6 children and left 300,000 seriously ill, the communist giant had a mania for the Western product. Demand has been so strong it has caused shortages in other countries and encouraged an illegal trade across the Chinese border. Instant formula has long been the preferred food for infants in China, but more recently China mainlanders holidaying in Western countries have been taking home tins of milk powder as presents for friends and family. Milk war. New Zealand's dairy industry has been a major beneficiary of this love affair with powdered milk. But a major free trade agreement, the FTA, signed between Australia and China in November means the Australian dairy industry will likely be the next big winner. Under the deal, tariff cuts have rendered Australia's dairy market so attractive that even the country's richest person, mining magnate Gina Reinhardt, is investing in the industry. The agreement, almost a decade in the making, put Australian farmers in general on a par with their New Zealand counterparts, according to Australian Trade Minister Andrew Robb, and put the country's dairy farmers ahead of their Kiwi cousins. I think this is a Chinese supermarket, and you can just see all the milk products in the background. Milk is popular in Australia, but the country still produces twice as much as it consumes. Okay, oh, this is maybe in Australia here. There is a white gold rush and unprecedented demand and interest, says Mr. McIlhoney. The FTA is a good outcome. There are tariff savings and growth and investment opportunities, more experts and more profit, he says. So that's kind of bizarre. This craze for powdered milk, Andy.
Well, it's probably the last thing that I would think that the Chinese would buy from Australia, and to the point where a mining magnate is getting into the business, and if it was copper or an industrial metals or something like that, it would it would be more unsurprising, but milk. I'd have never thought. Well, they've got plenty of consumers in China. What is it? 2 billion. What's the population? Is it 2 billion?
They're saying it seems to be on a kind of a trend.
Yeah. Would have been the last sort of product I'd have thought of that Australia would give to China would want from Australia. I mean, there you go.
It's just bizarre. Well,
I think Britain have missed out, or the English or the UK has missed out on that, because we used to have a huge dairy industry. But there you go.
yeah.
It's a surprising article, to say the least there, but
I don't personally drink it just because of the fact that the cattle are given, medications, and they're not grass-fed and all kinds of things.
Oh no, I mean there's a
and also, like, I mean, the whole notion of that you need milk to support healthy bones is pretty well been debunked. It's not just the calcium, and it's kind of the wrong source of calcium. There's different types of calcium, but I believe it's silica. It's the main proprietor to growing strong and healthy bones.
Well, I think we're the only species out of all the warm-blooded mammals on the earth that after weaning we carry on drinking milk, whereas even things like seal pups, which is very important in the early days of a seal pup to get the milk to build up the fat it needs to survive fast from its mother's very fatty, nourishing milk.
Right.
But once it's past that stage, it doesn't drink milk anymore. But mammals don't. It's just humans that seem to carry on the milk drinking. So it shows you it's not needed once you're past the weaning stages of a pup or an infant or a child, or whatever which way you want to look at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, Um, well, yeah, it's a very interesting article, but you spotted that one now. So I wouldn't have
I
spotted.
mean, I can see definitely that it has its uses, and in case like a woman is not producing,
Yeah,
her own maternal milk, that you would need a substitute. But to just randomly throw this out there in our markets is anyway. It's beyond, yeah, it's another beyond belief article, Andy.
good spot though, Buck.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. It's over to you.
Okay, Doc, I'll steal the screen then.
Yeah,
Let's pop that
I'll
up
stop mine.
and see if that comes up. Stop the screen. Has it started? Have we got it? Have we got it?
Yeah.
Okay, well this article here is from Mike Adams, the health ranger, from his excellent Natural News website. Really good website this is. And it's got a lot in it actually. It pretty much covers everybody's thoughts, especially the people like me and yourself, Buck, and in the alternative media and looking for the truths in the world. So it just pretty much covers what's still at not so much in the back of my mind, at the fore of my mind actually. Nothing's changed since 2008, basically, as we well know. Apart from perhaps more bending of figures, shall we say, and whatever by the mainstream. But anyway, it's dire warnings. A dire warning for 2015: police state tyranny, government extremism, the approaching currency collapse. So that's pretty much got everything in there. Natural news. Every once in a while, I suddenly remember there are still people who watch the mainstream news and actually believe the lies. As all of us who are truly informed via the independent media fully realise, those people are hopelessly beyond reach. After all, they still think chemotherapy prevents cancer, vaccine prevents flu, and that government, police, state surveillance is awesome because it makes society safer. There are still people who think the national debt doesn't matter too. And because of that faulty faith in fiat currency, they will of course be caught totally unprepared when the US dollar eventually collapses. No one can predict when it's going to happen. The certainty of the collapse of the dollar is inescapable. And when it does collapse, things are going to be so bad for the average CNN watcher that they will be absolutely clueless about what to do or where to turn. An instructive example of all this is taking place right now in Venezuela, where plummeting oil prices have caused a currency crisis that's gutting store shelves and causing nationwide shortages of food and supplies. Shoppers thronged grocery stores across Caracas today as deepening shortages led the government to put Venezuela food distribution under military protection, reports Bloomberg.com. Lines, some stretching for blocks, formed outside grocery stores in the South American country's capital as residents search for scarce basic items such as detergent and chicken. A dearth of foreign currency, exasperated by collapsing oil prices, has led to the shortages of imports from toilet paper to car batteries and helped push annual inflation to 64% in November. Don't worry, the stores are full, says the government. As you might expect, the Venezuelan government lies to its own citizens with the same veracity demonstrated by the US White House when trotting out falsified unemployment and inflation figures in the USA. In Venezuela, Interior Minister Carmen Menendez said, "Don't fall into depression. We have the capacity and the products for everyone. With calmness and patience, the stores are full, of course. The stores are full. Of course, any fool with a set of eyes can see the stores are mostly empty, just as the photos show below. Then again, since when did the government ever feel any need to tell the truth?" Look at the stores here, look, they're empty. Yeah, don't worry, look, we got plenty. The stores are full. Anyway, moving down. Logically speaking, if the store shelves were full, then they wouldn't be empty. But such logic never quite seems to sink in with the governments. that are running on smoke and mirrors. Perhaps the same economic fairies that calculate US unemployment statistics are also busy stocking the shelves of Venezuelan stores with toilet paper and laundry detergent. As Bloomberg.com reports, the citizens of Venezuela aren't fooled by government delusions. You can't find anything. I've spent 15 days looking for diapers, John Paul Mate, a meat vendor, said outside a Louis store. You have to take off work to look for products. I go to at least 5 stores a day. Here's what's really happening in the words of Ron Paul. Ron Paul wrote a stunning article published on his website that explains why the world is headed for such economic turmoil. There are several key passages worth highlighting here. Reality is now setting in for America, and for that matter, for the most of the world. The piper will get his due, even if the children have to suffer. The deception of promising success has lasted for quite a while. It was accomplished by ever-increasing taxes, deficits, borrowing and printing press money. In the meantime, the policing powers of the federal government were systematically and significantly expanded. No one cared much, as there seemed to be enough gravy for rich and poor, the politicians and the bureaucrats. As the size of government grew and cracks in the system became readily apparent, a federal police force was needed to regulate our lives and the economy, as well as to protect us from ourselves and make sure the redistribution of shrinking economic pie was fair to all. Central economic planning requires an economic police force to monitor every transaction of all Americans. Special interests were quick to get governments to regulate everything we put in our bodies, food, medications, and even politically correct ideas. IRS employees soon needed to carry guns to maximize revenue collections. Predictable poverty that results from such a terrible system is now upon us and is a strong motivation for the militarization of local police as part of the expansion of the national police state. Temporary and perceived benefits of government overreach and expanding police powers end up becoming the real problem. By the time it is understood that these benefits are artificial, government power and special interests have gained control of a system designed to serve them and not the people the programs purported to help. The victims are left hanging and taught that too much freedom is the source of the problem, prompting even more support for the policing power of the state. The law and order crowd thrives on excessive laws and regulations that no US citizen can escape. The out-of-control war on drugs is the worst part, and it generates the greatest danger in poverty-ridden areas via out-of-control police. It is estimated that these conditions have generated up to 80,000 SWAT raids per year in the United States. The economic and moral decay of American society is reflected in the loss of liberties. This problem affects all Americans, and not just the poor in the city. Gradual erosion of personal and economic liberty has proceeded for a century. The loss of our liberty has sharply accelerated since the 9/11 attacks. We have done to ourselves what no foreign enemy could ever possibly accomplish. Government surveillance provides the state with information that enables it to know our every move. The protection of the Fourth Amendment is gone. The growth of state necessitates government surveillance of all financial transactions to enhance the collection of tax revenues. Because there is never enough money for the do-gooders, the tactics of the tax collectors have become more vicious. Violation of our liberties is excused by the majority in order to ensure that all people pay their fair share. It's the federal government that leads the charge in our domestic wars, which in addition to the global war on terrorism, including the war on drugs, taxpayers and poverty, all of which contribute to the constant war on our privacy. Today, every American is a suspect. Our president has established a policy that an American citizen can be assassinated without even being charged with a crime. Not only do employees of agencies like the CIA, FBI, and the BATF carry guns, employees of OSHA EPA, Fish and Wildlife, and many other agencies enforcing regulations do so as well. The notion of total homeland security being provided by a heavily armed Department of Homeland Security was foreign to America up until just recently. Today, whether it's riots in our cities or chaos after a national disaster like a hurricane, the feds are there taking charge over all local officials and property owners. It shouldn't surprise us that our local police departments have become an arm of a runaway federal police mentality that mimics an army. Sanity will not return to the US until our financial system collapses, an event for which they are feverishly working. An honest assessment of the economy will not reveal any significant improvement in 2015. Inflation will continue to plague us, possibly even with the government-rigged CPI figures showing an increase. But the true inflation of the Fed's creation, as well as the subsequent malinvestment and the various bubbles bursting, will accelerate. Debt in all categories will continue to increase at an unsustainable rates. A major geopolitical economic event greater than the crisis of 2008 is fast approaching. The precipitating event will be a surprise to the majority of politicians and economists. There are many next shoe to drop possibilities, and one could happen any time or any place. Before we can actually restore our liberties, we'll most likely will have to become a lot less free and much poorer. This is sad since correct and workable answers are available to us if only the people understood them and demanded liberty and honesty rather than being dependent on excessive government power and believing the false promises of politicians. Even with the problems we face today and bleak outlook for the coming year, there's much to encourage us. During next year, there will be continuation of many more people recognizing the failure of government to create peace and prosperity. More widespread understanding of truth is required in order to bring about a successful revolution. When currencies collapse, imports become scarce. For all those looking to weather the coming US dollar, it's important to realize that a weak domestic currency makes exports cheaper for foreign buyers, while simultaneously making imports more expensive for the domestic consumers. When currencies collapse, which typically means losing 50% or more of their value, they cause imported goods to become ridiculously expensive. Delusional governments, meaning all governments, almost always institute price controls to appease the masses. Price controls create sudden and dramatic scarcity because goods are offered at far below market value. This causes an immediate wave of product acquisition, speculation, profiteering, black market selling, black market exporting, smuggling, etc., which depletes all the available inventory very quickly. To understand this, realize that if the real street value of the pack of toilet paper is, let's say, £6, the government forces retailers to sell those packs at $2 under price controls, then everybody and their brothers buy up the toilet paper at £2 a pack because it's essentially on sale at 67% off. They can then turn around and sell those packs or barter them to friends, neighbours and relatives, etc., for the street value price of $6. This is why price controls almost always result in artificial scarcity, but delusional governments don't understand real economics. So instead of allowing goods to settle into a natural market value, they criminalise the selling of those items at unapproved prices, causing massive shortages. The government's answer to all this: go on television and tell everybody the store shelves are full. And why not? The emperor really is butt naked after all. I'm nearly there, Bock. The media will lie to you about what's happening, of course. When the US dollar collapses, you will be told by all the usual media suspects that the dollar is not collapsing. When the store shelves are empty, you will be told they are full. When your pension is looted and bankrupt, you will be promised it's being protected by the full faith and credit of the government. For every economic disaster you're about to experience in the months and years ahead, There was a blatant lie ready to be broadcast by the White House and the complicit liberal media in an effort to convince you that what you see happening right in front of your eyes isn't really happening at all. You will be mesmerized with fabricated economic indicators, hypnotized by neurolinguistic programming, and cajoled into thought controlling through social engineering and influenced language. You will also be socially condemned if you diverge from conformist propaganda and lies. Specifically, the same government that backs a network of underground bunkers, command centres, food stores, military bases, billions of rounds of ammunition will take to the broadcast news networks and declare anyone who buys more than one box of detergent to be a hoarder. Every effort will be made to marginalise and ridicule preppers, if not outright criminalise them and seize their supplies under Obama's executive orders. Unconstitutional. Uh, Unconstitutional. We got there in the end. Executive orders. Think about it. The same government whose police forces are heavily armed with mine-resistant armoured vehicles and military assault weapons on the basis of we might need it will condemn people who have stockpiled a year's supply of freeze-dried chicken for the very same reason. We might need it after all, but we're bad to think about backup plans, even though the government is good to have backup plans, see? And when the starving masses realise they can't be saved by a living government, they will, of course, panic in about 3 to 7 days. Depending on the city and the weather, the will really hit the fan when city goobers who live on Pop-Tarts and Kraft macaroni and cheese realise they can't find any more Pop-Tarts on the store shelves. A sense of diabetes magnified emotional urgency will take hold, transforming ordinary polite neighbours into raging maniacs fighting each other for crumbs of nutritional depleted junk food. Simply put, whose idea of food preps is based on items sold by local quickie Mark probably won't survive very long. Doritos and cheese puffs aren't sources of survival nutrition. American culture has nearly forgotten self-reliant living. Most people in America today live wholly connected to the very system that will fail them in an economic collapse. They do not know how to hand wash their clothes, how to cut firewood, to heat their home, how to raise chicken eggs for food, how to sprout seeds for fast nutrition, how to can food for the winter, nor even how to find antiseptics in forest plants. Those people are dangerously dependent on medications, government food stamps, grocery stores, microwavable dinners, and city-wide plumbing. When these systems fail, these people are lost. What do they know? How to do is line up and be obedient, and that's exactly what the federal government's counting on. The level of blind obedience to false authority is so ingrained in American culture today that I have no doubt many people would gladly line up to be shot on the threshold of a grass grave with bodies strewn beneath them as long as the gun-toting authorities told them, "There are Pop-Tarts down there," really, with sprinkles on top. When modern-day preppers talk about the zombies and the apocalypse, they don't mean there will be actual reanimated bodies dragging themselves around the cities looking for victims to infect. What they're referring to is all the clueless, TV indoctrinated, junk fooded, addicted hordes of mindless conformists who thought the government was going to take care of them forever because that's what the TV keeps telling them. And the TV lies, does it? Those newscasters aren't reading scripts, are they? As Ron Paul elegantly explains in his recent article, big government will ultimately fail. The people, for the simple reason that big government, big promises are a big scam. When EBT cards go down and events sure to follow in the footsteps of bank holidays, all those depend on government money to buy processed junk food will flood into the streets, hungry and perturbed, demanding some put credits back on their cards so they can stockpile Oreo cookies and Tide laundry detergent. After all, if you're going to eat chemicals, why not wash your clothes in chemicals too? Anyone smart enough to prepare in advance and stockpile some of their own food will be singled out as greedy hoarders, while socialist-minded do-gooders who fail to prepare will demand that all food be equally shared, meaning you owe them your food, which is exactly why socialism fails, because it is founded on the idea of mob theft and coercion. And that's probably about it, actually. Well, actually, he does have a little plug here. I suppose we better read it because it's such a really good article. Read or listen to 299 Days by Glenn Tate, the astounding book series. 299 Days depicts all this astonishing detail. It's one of the best books, 2014. Glenn Tate nails the warped logic of socialists who refuse to prepare, advance them after the stuff hits the fan, demand all the community food be shared equally. 29 Days is an ultra-realistic look at the slow crash or partial crash. Not a total Mad Max scenario, but rather an economic crisis combined with police state tyranny that attempts to criminalise all independent citizens who are trying to live off the grid. The series gets off to a really slow start but picks up around the book 6, books 9 and 10. Get ready for the economic turmoil in 2015 and beyond. And exactly, and it goes on. You can read more of Ron Paul's some pieces, but I made it through the article box. Sorry, it was a bit of a long. I didn't realise actually how long it was going down the page, but there we go. I'm going to take a breather, and you can make a comment if you wouldn't mind, please.
I mean, there's all sorts of scenarios. Like this is they're talking about a currency collapse, and another scenario that we often talk about is if there's a power outage that goes on for extended period of time. The power is out, the bank machines are closed. All kinds of things can happen, and it's not just these people are talking about these guys are just fear mongering, or it's just a fact of being prepared for a few things, really, and realizing that some of these things are likely to happen.
Well, I think they will happen, and actually following on from your articles as well, that another reason why I think possibility of you're seeing the barrels of oil price go forever and ever downwards, and they will stay downwards, is that America realizes that the game is up. The Ponzi scheme of printing money, giving it to the rich so they can, like I said last night, buy their own stock back off in the financial market to get ever and ever richer, while the poor doesn't get anything. There's no trickle down at all, even if they say there isn't. That's the facts on the ground. The idea of that is to bring down other countries that have built themselves up quite nicely, like the new Russian Republic and obviously China, is to maybe bring them back down to a level that America has to come down. So if you look at the big picture, America knows that their economy has got to go dump. It's got to go southwards, and they've got to literally, their economy has got to shrink and come down. So it makes sense to try and, that makes sense, but I can see perhaps that, that they're trying to bring heap as much misery on these other emerging countries' economies, to bring them down to a level similar to what their own will be after the currency collapses. Bob, what do you think?
Mm-hmm. Well, something we'll have to just watch. I guess time will tell, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of the many things that I think this is a big thing. This oil slash price, it really is, and it doesn't really make any sense when they're gung-ho about their shale gas, shale petrol, shale oil extraction and the fracking. that's relatively new. 2006, wasn't it? They didn't start till then. Horizontal fracking. Let's be honest about it. We're not talking about vertical fracking that they've been doing for years. That's the big misnomer about it already, because they say, oh, we've been doing this vertical fracking for years. Yeah, fair enough, but horizontal fracking, man.
Yeah.
And they've been doing this since 2006, and that they put it out there that it was going to last 100 years. Well, hang on a minute. Are you deliberately sabotaging it, or what? What's going on? Because falling price, and there's a lot of rigs that are going out of business, closing down. So, you've got to, I suppose the big picture is, it's there's several reasons why this oil is the barrel per cost per barrel is going through the floor. Maybe this is just another one, to bring other countries down to their level once they collapse their currency, because they know the piper, as Ron Paul puts it, has got to be paid. There's no getting out of this. So it's not just the Americas, the whole
Yeah, I
East.
mean, there does need to be a kind of a leveling out.
Yeah, that's what I think. So I thought I'd read that. Just that's I ain't doing no more articles. I knew there was a lot in there, but a lot of information for a few people if they want to leave a comment. If you do, anybody who listens to these, just say it's a load of rubbish what we're doing. At least it's a comment. I don't mean it like that, but listen, leave a comment. Comment as well as a comment, and that'd be nice. So that's me done and dusted, Bob.
All right. Well, I guess that's it for us today.
Yeah.
We'll be back with another one soon. Thanks for listening.
Cheers, Bob.